I hope you enjoyed getting a preview of the 32nd note passage in Part B from yesterday's video. Before we go into the beginning of Part B with the right hand by itself, I need to show you the chords that lead into Part B. I think they're one of the most difficult parts of the piece, and I think there's a lot to unpack here. After you play phrase 1 and 2 of the ending of Part A, you have some chords that do come upon you suddenly. If you don't take any time, and if you played the chords way too loudly like me, then it would sound like that. I'll do it again. I'll see about taking a little bit more time on this second try. And there would be a lot of time taken there. I'm not used to taking time, so off camera I had to try a couple times to get a good take for you. So here are the chords. We should be able to play them both with freedom and slowness and sensitivity, and also with a very steady metronomic style so that our technique is challenged. Here are the chords. And then you'll be playing those grace notes with a left-hand accompaniment beneath it. But today's video is about these chords because I think there is just so much to work on here. So there is the notes of E and C, F and C, and then a first inversion C major triad in the right hand. And they are 16th notes, so the counting would be and, 3, and then after that, the downbeat of the next measure can be anticipated by these grace notes, or you can play the two grace notes on the actual downbeat. Here are the keys again for the right-hand chords. And because the chords involve treble C being played 3 times, and some lower notes that are moving, there's just one lower note in the first 2 chords, and in the third chord there are 2 lower notes. We need to make a distinction because whenever you have repeated notes, they're not exactly melodic, but whenever you have moving notes, they can be brought out as a melody. So even though the music doesn't have any dynamic indications about which one of these notes is going to be played louder, it is a good musical rule of thumb to play moving notes louder than repeated ones. And so I'll be trying to play the bottom notes of the chord louder than the top notes. To practice it, I'll play just the bottom notes by themselves. The third chord presents an interesting problem because there's 2 notes. There's a middle note and a bottom note, and you have to decide which one's most important if you want to bring out just a single note. I'm going to think that the top note, the middle of the chord, is the most important one. And so I'll be playing this single note instead of the complete chord for quite a while in order to get the idea and the sound of the moving voice in my head. For this third chord, I do need to say I'm using an unusual fingering because I'm going to try to bring out these bottom voices. I'm not going to use my usual fingering for E, G, C. In other contexts, I would always use the standard first inversion fingering for the right hand and have the 2 and the 5 there, because the interval of the 4th is on the outside, so I'd always do it to respect the fact that the gap between finger 1 and 2 is very easy to use and should be utilized as much as possible. But because I'm trying to make the lower note of these chords legato, I'm going to be playing this first inversion triad with 3 in the middle. The left hand has 2 notes at once, and then at the end it has 3 notes at once. Just like the right hand, it has B flat in middle C, A in middle C, and then G, B flat, middle C. You can keep your hands still in order to reach all these keys. It will be one of the situations where you have your 5 fingers on 5 adjacent keys. That'll be the down downbeat of the B section. Because the left hand has a clear downward trajectory in its moving voice, I'm going to try to make those notes louder when I play the chords complete. And so we're going to have a contrary motion situation between the two hands. You should do that a million times because we need to get the hang of it. In order to play the chords complete with these moving voices being louder than the repeated notes, I am going to hold the moving voices and try to make them as legato as possible while playing the repeated notes staccato. This could take a lot of time to get the hang of, so it'll require a lot of thinking and a lot of stopping to make sure you're doing it right. See, I'm actively lifting up the fingers I don't want to be emphasized. And it takes a lot of thought because at the end there's two to choose from. So this way you can more easily hear there was an example of me playing the grace notes before the beat. The F and A in the right hand are written as smaller notes than normal, which means they can be played with a little bit of freedom and with not exact counting. And usually in the old books from this time period, commenters would say that you're supposed to play grace notes like this on the beat. But from the time of about 1860 to 1960, most classical pianists would play these notes before the beat because they were considered easier to squeeze in if you emphasized the main note landing with the main note of the bass. But the old books are pretty unanimous that you actually play grace notes with the beat, even though it might seem quite awkward to us modern day pianists. I have always played before the beat in the past, but in order to try to be consistent in a scholarly way while I'm sharing it with you, I am going to be relearning Für Elise with the grace notes on the downbeat. Let's go back to playing these chords in slow motion. I'm going to be holding the moving voice down while playing the other one staccato, and then I'll be just playing the downbeat with the two grace notes. Okay, if you don't want to play the moving voice legato, but you still want to bring it out, that gets into a whole different can of worms. Playing multiple voices within the same hand and playing one of them with more emphasis than the other is quite an advanced skill. The most common conventional wisdom used by piano teachers to teach balance within the hand is to feel like there is more weight going toward the note that is being emphasized. And that can require slight shifts in your alignment, in your wrist position, in your elbow placement, and just a feeling within your body. But that is the words that are used to describe it. It's hard for me to isolate weight into a teachable, distinct pedagogical concept that I can explain to you. But if you can just think of the concept and try to put more pressure, more force, more weight towards certain fingers, and it is working for me right now, just thinking the word weight and feeling like I'm making a distinction between certain fingers, or feeling like the center of my impulse from my arm is going toward that finger directly. That seems like it's helping me. So I'm going to share some more practice methods that I've heard from elsewhere and that I've made up myself as well. And I hope one of them works for you. In order to practice balancing within the hands, you can play leg piano, where you try to play the two hands on your leg and you push in with the fingers that need more balance and more emphasis, while the other fingers are just along to the right and they just gently graze your thigh or your knee or wherever you push in for the leg piano practice method. I'm pushing in really hard for my fourth finger. You can see maybe the joints even collapsing. And then I'm going to transfer that to the piano. Okay, that's a good sign. Whenever you have the unemphasized notes not even make a sound, at least you know you're playing them superficially enough, even though it's too superficial. Another Another way to practice balance, which I don't talk about very much because it's hard to communicate and I'm not sure if it works yet, is to play the softer notes first and then play the louder note next. And be sure to play the soft note soft like you intend to in the final product, and play the loud note loud like you intend to in the final product. And try to make it so that your timing of the two levels of sound get closer and closer in time. So I'm pretending that the two soft notes are a grace note that comes right before the loud note. Oh, and then you get so close that you might even still feel like you're starting the soft notes early and you play the loud note, but because the soft notes are pushing the key down slower, it's like you do get to the bottom of the key at the same time. You just give the soft notes a head start. I did feel a little bit like these notes started first. I just feel a little bit of pressure pushing the key in, and then my fourth finger flings down quickly to make a quite loud sound. And I'm not always able to do it. My hand tenses up slightly. So those are some ways to practice for balance. You can make the legato happen while the other voice plays staccato. You can play leg piano. I didn't do it in my right hand. And you can also do the grace note practice method, which is the most eccentric one. That's the one I made up myself. I'll practice that a little bit more. Unfortunately, it doesn't always deliver results right away because it's so incredibly subtle to feel like you're playing the unemphasized notes early. Well, that led to some decent results, but I'm still not sure if it'll hold up to stage fright performance pressure. So those are our chords. The right hand has that unusual fingering. I'll play it in slow motion, and then I'll play it with a running start backing up to part A, phrase 2, repeat. All right, it's been nice to practice that, and now the running start like I mentioned. And that's the metronomic style. My pedaling was a little unclear, but I'll leave it in the video. And now I'll try to play with some sensitivity and learn how to actually give a little bit of time for this surprising amount of chords that happen in a very small span of time. I'll see you next time. Now that we got over that hump, I think it's time for me to show you the right hand phrase 1, and then I'll get into the right hand phrase 2, and then I'll show you the left hand. Happy practicing and good luck.